Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today here at Mackinac Island. Thank you to the members of the press who have joined us here today. And thank you to the members of Michigan's law enforcement community who have joined us here today. My name is Sean McBrearty. I'm the Michigan Director. Oil and water don't mix. And we're here today at Mackinac Island last 50 years. This pipeline has already spilled Canadian fossil fuel industry and Enbridge, one of the largest fossil fuel transport companies in the world. We are going to have some speakers for you today, and following that, we'll open it up for questions from the press. But why are we here at Mackinac Island right now? We're here right now because the week after Labor Day every year, people gather here for the Mackinac Policy Conference put on by the Detroit Chamber of Commerce. And this is an event where the lobbyists, scenes and lands, lawmakers get together in an exclusive setting at the Grand Hotel. It costs thousands of dollars for one person to set foot during Mackinac Policy Conference. And so we have actually been turned away from where we were going to hold this press conference of the people. The Great Lakes belong to the people, and especially to our Indigenous sisters and brothers who have joined us here today, who have special treaty rights here in the Straits of Mackinac and across the waters of Michigan. And we're here today to tell the people who are at that hotel that we are not going to be turned away, that the people of Michigan value our Great Lakes more than we value the oil industry profits that flow through Line 5. We're here to let them know that today, more than ever in the history of our country, we need champions who are going to fight for people against corporate interests. We need champions. We need Governor Whitmer to be a champion who is going to fight for the people of Michigan and for the Great Lakes over the interests of one of the richest and most powerful industries in the history of the world. Recently, in the Michigan State House, a resolution was brought up to support the Line 5 oil tunnel. And hats off to Pierce and the entire Democratic caucus in the State House voted against the Line 5 oil tunnel. While Evan Whitmer, who has never publicly shared her opinion on whether Michigan is going to have the final word here as the Department of Environment, Great Lake Fuel, moneyed interests that are looking to use our Great Lakes as a dumping ground for oil. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Beth Wallace from the National Wildlife Federation.
Yay! Thanks, Sean. My name is Beth Wallace, and 15 years ago, the community I grew up in was devastated by one of the largest inland oil spills in U.S. history. Enbridge ignored alarms for 17 hours, dumping over 1 million gallons of toxic tar sands bitumen into the Kalamazoo River. The spill destroyed 40 miles of waterways, ecosystems, and it didn't even have to happen. For the past 15 years, I've worked with the National Wildlife Federation to ensure the ability. Enbridge is now attacking tribal treaty rights, trust doctrine, trying to strip away our rights to say no to a shutdown, and their dangerous proposals to expand the life of this pipeline. Governor Whitmer has stood up for the Great Lakes and all of us before by revoking Line 5's illegal easement, but her work isn't done. Now Enbridge wants to blast and drill through the Great Lakes for years just to extend the life of a pipeline that'll soon reach 80 years old and has already spilled at least 35 times. Meanwhile, the Great Lakes Business Network and regional experts confirm the project is absolutely not needed. Decommissioning Line 5 is the only honorable path forward and means we're honoring treaties and public trust, supporting domestic energy supplies and alternatives, creating more jobs in decommissioning, avoiding noticeable price increases, and it's important to notice we are paying for the tunnel. Those price increases are going to happen in the rates that Enbridge is already setting. The proposed tunnel isn't about safety or providing our communities with energy. It's about Enbridge's profits. And as Michigan reviews Enbridge's ever-changing permits, which are now being rubber-stamped at a federal level under the false notion of an energy emergencies, Michigan officials must apply the most critical eye possible. Enbridge's track record proves they cannot be trusted. In the Kalamazoo spill, beyond the environmental catastrophe, the spill sickened hundreds of people, killed thousands of animals, exposed Enbridge's exploitive behaviors by trying to offer residents air purifiers or water in exchange for waves of liability. Congress had to stop them. Line 3, Enbridge repeatedly violated environmental laws, spilling drilling fluid into wetlands, destroying wild rice beds, and ignoring tribal sovereignty. Regulators fined them millions, yet they just treated it as a cost of doing business. Their pattern is completely undeniable. Cutting, paying fines, repeat, all while pushing it. The state must enforce the Great Lakes Emerged Lands Act and requiring a review of the entire length of Line 5, demanding full transparency on the risks and the real review of money and our way of life. We cannot let a company like Enbridge dictate our future. Hiding risk because they know the safest path forward is retirement. With that, I'll pass it back to Sean. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Beth. And now I'd love to introduce somebody else who's been in this fight for such a long time. The founder of the Michigan Anishinaabe Caucus and policy director at the Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition, Andrea Pierce.
I wanted to clarify that I'm also a citizen of Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians. So these are our lands. And I think it's important that we remember that we need to be considered, we need to be consulted, and we need to have a voice when we're talking about pipelines and tunnels. When they built this, the pipeline, the original Line 5, we were not consulted. We found out about it years, decades later. And we've been fighting it since then, and we're still fighting it today. I do want to say thank you to Oil and Water Don't Mix. Thank you for inviting me. I also want to say thank you to the LTBB, the Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians Community Eagle staff, carried by Joe Van Elstein. I want to say thank you to Black Crow, because without him here, I wouldn't probably have made it. And I just want to say, talking about making it, we were stopped walking. We were going up by the Grand Hotel. Protection rally. And we were stopped by the Michigan State Police because it's more private. And I just want to say that I really feel sickened. The Michigan citizens are not allowed where policy that affects us is being made and talked about. Who are the sponsors there? Have you looked at that? DTE and Enbridge. They're sponsoring with our legislators, and we can't even walk by the Grand Hotel on the sidewalk. The Constitution says we have to protect the Great Lakes, and that's what we are doing. We are protecting the Great Lakes. We need to have good, clean, safe water for them to drink, to fish, to hunt, to gather. That is part of what our treaty rights are. Governor Whitmer has done some things. She has shut them down. She revoked their easement. But that's it. What else is being done? It's operating illegally, that pipeline. For years now, operating illegally. They're still making a profit off of us. Off of Michigan citizens. They are making a profit, these Canadian companies. That needs to stop. We need to remove it. We need to stop the tunnel. We don't need that either. You want Michigan jobs? Decommission that pipeline. Good union jobs right there. That will help Michigan. Right, man camps. That will come when they make that tunnel against our will. We will have man camps, and those are missing and murdered Indigenous relations because all of us are in danger. We are all in jeopardy of being killed and hidden and sexually human trafficked. Is that what we want for Michigan and Michigan citizens? No. We have the highest rates of crime in sexual human trafficking and abuse for Native people. The Department of Justice ignores it. We need to stop it. Dana Nessel, though, has made a task force for missing and murdered Indigenous relations, which says how important this is and what an epidemic it is for Native people to be missing. The phone number is 517-284-0008, and I hope none of us ever need it. So I'm just here to say this is the land of the Anishinaabe people, and we are here, we need to be heard, and we are here to protect the water and the land. So what do we say? Shut down Line 5. Shut down. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. We have one more speaker this afternoon. I'm thrilled to introduce Kalvin Carter, the Executive Director of North Advocacy, based in Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you, Sean. Good afternoon. My name's Kalvin Carter, and I've spent my entire life in northern Michigan, and now I live in Sault Ste. Marie. The land and the water up here raised me. I grew up hunting, fishing, and eating what I caught, learning early on to respect the land and the waters that sustain us. I'm not the only one that grew up that way. That's a way of life for a lot of us up here. We depend on clean land, water, and air, not just for recreation, but for putting food on the table and raising healthy families. This land and these waters are literally a part of who we are. That's why I'm speaking out today in opposition to Enbridge's Line 5 pipeline and the proposed tunnel under the Straits of Mackinac. But this isn't just about the Straits. Line 5 stretches over 600 miles, crossing nearly 400 rivers, streams, and waterways across our entire state. Every one of those crossings are a risk to the people who live nearby and the waters and the way of life that we all share. And I'm tired of seeing my neighbors played against one another by a foreign multinational oil company that's trying to squeeze every last cent out of a dying industry. They promise jobs, but the truth is building this tunnel would create only a small number of temporary jobs, while putting the long-term health of our environment and the economy at risk. Studies show decommissioning the darn thing is going to create more jobs than building that tunnel. And we don't need this pipeline to meet our energy needs. That's a narrative being pushed to make us believe we have no choice up here but to accept that risk. But folks, these guys are trying to sell us a bad deal. Our propane can come from other sources, and it already does. Line 5 is not some kind of a miracle lifeline that this company is offering us. It's something that is to keep us in their pockets. We're not dependent on Line 5. What we are dependent on is clean land, clean water, and clean air. Full stop. So this is about protecting our future, not just my family, but all the families in northern Michigan and across the entire state. We depend on the land and the water around us. We deserve better than to be used as pawns in a corporate strategy to delay the transition away from fossil fuels. I thank you for your time.
Way to go, man. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm so glad that we got to hear from Kalvin, Andrea, and Beth. Big round of applause for them. From 15 years ago, the Kalamazoo oil spill to today has been a long fight. A lot of folks here have been fighting the Line 5 pipeline for over a decade, and a lot of folks here are also new to the fight, have heard about it recently. This movement keeps growing. This has been one of the most long, hard, tenaciously fought fights in the history of the Michigan environmental movement. And we're here today to ask Governor Whitmer simply to tell your constituents which side you're on. Whether you are going to be the kind of champion that we need to be electing to offices from here on out, people who are going to rise to the political moment, people who are going to fight for the people against corporate interests, or are you going to be the type that values things like the Mackinac Policy Conference and relationships with seedy corporate lobbyists. Is that going to be what Governor Whitmer's legacy is? Because if there's an oil spill here today, her whole time as governor will be an asterisk in that story. And so with that, I'd love to open it up to any questions from members of the press who are here. If you could please start just with your name and what outlet you're with.
My name is MK. I'm here with NMC. And my question, I guess, would be, what would you say to policymakers who are saying that if we stop the pipeline, then we'd have a lot of trucks doing the same propane?
So the answer to that is simple, and I'll let Beth chime in here too. The idea that we would somehow have trucks running oil across the Mackinac Bridge is an entire fantasy made of whole cloth by Enbridge. That is never an option in shutting down this pipeline. What we do know is that Line 5 functions as a shortcut for Canadian oil to get from Superior, Wisconsin to Ontario. And we're essentially just being used as a shortcut here. We know there are other paths for the oil. And in fact, if you look at Enbridge's TV advertisements where they talk about things like trucks going over the Mackinac Bridge, it sounds like a really bad idea to shut down the pipeline. But if you listen to Enbridge's experts when they're testifying in court and they're under oath, you know, when they can't lie, their experts actually agree with our experts that if we had a worst case scenario Line 5 shutdown, and by worst case scenario, I mean the pipeline ruptures and they have to shut it down immediately, not a planned shutdown over the course of several months like would happen if it's decommissioned. But in the case of worst case scenario shutdown, the only impact shutting down Line 5 would have on Michigan gas prices is a temporary raise of about 0.5 cents per gallon, well within the margin of error. And Beth, did you want to share anything from the recent report?
Yeah, one big piece of decommissioning Line 5 is Enbridge's own alternatives. They actually own a highway of pipelines throughout our entire region, and they expanded Line 6B, now called Line 78, when it ruptured. That pipeline has existing capacity, and regional energy experts agree, including Enbridge's own experts under oath in court, that within a shutdown, whether it be planned to prevent a spill or whether a spill occurs, within at least 6 months, the market will completely adjust naturally.
Thanks. Did we have any other questions from press? Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. And for those of you joining us demonstrating, thank you so much for coming from across the state, from different states. We got folks from Minnesota, we have folks from Wisconsin, from right here in Michigan, folks all around the Great Lakes region. Please take some time this afternoon to enjoy this beautiful place that we're working to protect. Thank you so much.